Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 7 of the Santa and his reindeer ornament tutorial. This is the Santa and his reindeer ornament that we are making. It is so cute and colorful and Christmassy. And today we're going to be making the unit called Santa and Toys. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 6 yet, that's okay. You can do these out of order. I'll have those videos listed down below in the description. That way, when you finish this one, you can go back and watch those. We just have a few materials to get ready, so let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we'll be using in today's video are all Miyuki Delicas. I have opaque light sapphire, white pearl AB, dyed silver lined red, and opaque black. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to call this blue, white, red, and black. We'll also need some beading thread and a beading needle. I like to use the Esalen Fire thread in the color Crystal, and this is a 4-pound thread. If what you like to use is a 6-pound thread, that would work too. And then I have a size 10 beading needle, a size 11 or a size 12 would also work. For implements, I like to use my long nose pliers to hold on to my thread at the end, and then I cut my thread with scissors. And then today I'm going to show you how I use the fire method to end the tail. All we need to do is thread our needle with about 3 feet of thread, and then we can get started. So I've threaded my needle and now I'm ready to pick up my first 3 beads. Let's pick up 3 blue beads. And then we're going to take these 3 beads and we're going to pull them down to the bottom of the thread, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Now let's make a square knot. So we'll cross over on top and then pull the tail through. Easier said than done. Oh my goodness. And then we'll cross over on top again and pull the tail through. So now you should have 2 loops. What I'm going to do is put my 2 fingers in the lower loop, the one that has the beads in it, and then I'm going to tug on the tail thread and the long thread until that top loop turns into a knot. Now, I'm not going to touch the tail to the flame, but I am going to get it super duper close. That way it melts the tip. And it turns the tip into this teensy little knot or bead. Now, I'm going to be pulling on the long thread while I'm twisting the loop until that little knot at the end of the tail meets the long thread. Now I'm going to take my thumbnail and pull that knot all the way down to the beads. And it turns the beads into this teensy little triangle, and that completes row number 1. So you'll notice that the knot is kind of set in between these 2 beads. Let's take our long thread and kind of tug it over so that the knot looks like it's coming out of one of the beads. It also looks like the thread is coming out of that bead. Now we're ready to pick up 2 more blue beads. And then we're going to sew through the bead that the thread is not coming out of. I like to call that the next bead. And then make sure that your new beads are sitting right on top of their buddies. Now let's pick up one blue and one black bead. And we're coming out of this bead, so let's sew through the next bead. And once again, make sure that those new beads are sitting right on top of their buddies. Now let's pick up one red bead and one blue bead. And we're coming out of this bead, let's sew through the next bead, and then we'll also sew through the buddy bead, the one that's set right below it. And when we sew through two beads like this, what we're doing is we're stepping up, putting our thread in position to start the next row. So that completes row number 2, and now we get to start row number 3. Let's start by picking up 2 blue beads, and we're going to sew through the next bead. Now let's pick up 1 blue bead. And we're coming out of this second bead right here. And you'll notice that the third bead, the next one, is set downward a little bit. We're going to skip the downward bead and we're going to sew the fourth bead, the one that's poking up. Now let's pick up 1 blue and 1 black. And we'll sew through the next bead. And now let's pick up 1 red, and we're going to skip that down bead and sew through the up bead, the one that's poking up. Now let's pick up 2 red beads and sew through the next. And then 1 blue bead. This is the last bead in this row. We're going to skip the down bead and sew through the up bead and also sew through its buddy. Sewing through those last 2 beads means we've completed this row, and now we get to start row number 4. Let's start with 2 blue beads and sew through the next. Then 1 blue and sew through the up. 1 blue and sew through the up. 1 blue and 1 black and sew through the next. 1 black and sew through the up. 1 red and sew through the up. 2 red beads and sew through the next. 1 blue and sew through the up. And 1 blue and sew through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 5. Let's start with 2 blue beads, then 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue and 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 red, 2 blue beads, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 blue. Sewing through those last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 6. Let's start with 1 white and 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 black and 1 blue, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 red, 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 7. Let's start with 1 white and 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue and 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 white and 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, and 1 white. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 8. Let's start with 2 blue beads. One blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, two blue beads, one blue, one black, one black, one red, one red, one blue, two blue beads, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, and one white. Sewing through the last two beads. And now we get to start row number 9. Let's start with 2 blue beads, one blue, 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 two blue beads, one black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 red, 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 white, and 1 white. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 10. Let's start with 2 blue beads, 1 black, 1 blue, 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 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 red, 1 blue, 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 white, and 1 blue. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 11. Let's start with 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 black, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 red, 1 blue, 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 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 and 1 blue. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 12. Let's start with 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 blue, 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 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 blue, 2 blue beads, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, actually I don't like that bead. Do you see how big that bead is? That one's going to make our triangle look a little wonky, so I'm going to actually pull that one out and replace it with a regular size. Some of them just come a little misshaped, missized. Okay, continuing on. 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, and 1 blue. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And that completes our 12 rows for our triangle. Now, if this is the first triangle that you've done with me, you'll see that I add connecting beads to some of the sides. Each unit is different, and this particular unit, we are not going to have any connecting beads on this side, but we are going to have connecting beads on this side, and then we're not going to have any connecting beads on the top. So the reason we do that is so that our units can connect together when we're completing the project. So what I also like to do is cap the corners. So let's start by capping this corner with 1 blue bead. And it turns the corner into a little point. So now what I like to do, because we're not going to add any beads down this side, we're just going to sew our thread along the quadrant line, and we're going to end up in this bead right here. So what I like to do is turn my triangle over, and then I'm just going to start sewing along that quadrant line, 1 bead at a time, 1 row at a time, until I get all the way up to the top. So remember, our goal is to get right here. No matter how you get there, really. You don't have to sew through the same beads I am. I just find it extra easy to sew through these beads that are right here on the quadrant line, because there's a little air pocket, I guess. So it's just easier for me to see and easier to sew through. That's just my choice, but you can pick any bead that you want as long as you get to that top corner. And this is also when I ask the question of the day or the emoji of the day. And today is going to be an emoji because we have little Santa Claus's little hat right here. Put a Santa hat in the comments and or many, a whole line of them would be so cute. But I'd love to see if you would take just a moment to comment down below. I love to see those little emojis on the comments on the videos. And yeah, it just lets me know that you're engaging and that you've watched all the way to this point, that you're beading along with me and you're having fun. I just love that part of YouTube, right? Alrighty, so we are now coming out of this corner bead. So let's cap the corner with one blue bead. And it turns it into a little point. And now let's add one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one black, one black, one red, one red, one white, one blue, and one blue. And now we are at our third and final corner. So let's cap this corner with one blue bead. And now we are going to sew up 6 rows or 6 beads along this quadrant line. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I was just thinking, if you can't find the hat emoji, then just put a Santa Claus in the comments. That would be fun, right? Alrighty, now we're coming out of the top of this bead right here. Let's sew down the bead right next to it. We're going to be doing a zigzag. And up the bead right next to that one. And by doing this zigzag, it just makes these last beads that we've added a little more secure. So let's do that again. We'll sew up 2 rows first. 1 and 2. And then let's do another zigzag. We're coming out of the top of this bead. Let's sew down the bead right next to it. And up the bead right next to that one. And then we'll sew up 2 more rows. And now that we've done 2 zigzags, I feel that these beads that we just added are extra secure. So let's cut our thread. Holding onto our thread with our long nose pliers, and then getting our scissors as close to the bead as possible without cutting the bead. Just snip off the thread. And that completes our triangle. We only need 1 of these for the project, so I will see you in a sec. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with me today and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.